What's going on there, guys? The professor here for M160. I hope everybody's having a good week, and I hope everybody's gotten an opportunity to uh, prepare themselves for the coming week. We're going to have a little short talk before we get into probably what is for me the most unfun part of this course, uh, skeletal mesh and some animation. Now, I'm going to come out and say it. I'm not an animator. Uh, I I know some animation, and I know how to use animations, and I know how to research animations, and I'm going to be conveying that as we go through. The syllabus for today, let me go ahead and make sure I've got it loaded up here so that I can actually stare at it while I'm talking to you guys about it. Where the heck did I put it? There it is. The syllabus for today is going to cover some of the following examples. We're going to talk about the skeletal mesh. We're going to look at some of the content examples because the content examples are important to the overall process of understanding the skeleton. We're going to go over tools and terminology. We're going to talk about the socket manager. We're going to introduce and do a very cursory pass of the control rig. I am probably going to do a demo on setting up part of the control rig. There are some tools that are available as well that I'm going to cover, especially for those of you who are interested in creating larger animations for games. I'm going to talk about some ragdoll simulations and some secondary motion. And I am going to talk at a cursory glance about the skeletal mesh and character creation workflow outline. However, that is not my forte. Most of my background is in technical artistry and level design. So this is not going to necessarily be as thorough as I want it to be, but we still need to cover it because it's an important element of the engine. It comes recommended to know because it's just something that you should know at least at a cursory pass. I almost do not ever revisit animation, at least for the 160 class, mostly because I can't really expand on knowledge that I don't necessarily have in perpetuity, right? A lot of the prefabs or assets that you can use for games, generally for me, will come pre-animated or come prefabbed, or I'm going to run to Mixamo and I'm going to grab a bunch of animations. I'll cover some of that today so that everybody has a pretty good idea how to get some very basic animations running into their games. And even if they're not a rigger or a rigging artist or a weight painter or anything like that, we don't have to worry about that. For those of you who are animators or who could be potential animators, I will also talk about some of the tools, especially the tools that link into Maya and Max. There are some Blender tools already that exist. And we'll talk about how to use the workflow to get your models into Unreal. But that is about the end of my knowledge when it comes to exterior tool sources for animation. The homework this week is going to be essentially create some basic skeletal mesh animation utilizing some of the elements that we are going to be covering today. Either manual or automatic skeletal mesh creation, and or going further from there. I'm going to assign a nominal amount of points with additional points given for people who go above and beyond. There's a lot here. This is the Unreal Animation and Skeletal Mesh, what's it called? Iceberg. It is not my background, as I said, but I still know enough to get myself into trouble, and I need to convey that knowledge to you guys so that you guys can make better decisions about whether or not this is something that you want to pursue in terms of your overall game development career. Typically speaking, if I'm going to make a game, I'm either going to buy some animations or I'm going to buy a ready-made state machine. I'm going to replace it with my models, and then I'm going to go from there. Mostly because I don't animate. I'm very bad at it. I can do sequencer, because sequencer is just controlling cameras, controlling things like controlling lens, controlling post-process volume. Those things make sense to me. Animation requires art, requires rigging, requires weight painting, requires physics assets, and then requires importing. And then on top of all of that, the skeleton has to be in a format that is going to work inside of Unreal Engine. I'll talk about how that works when I get there. But again, as a very broad primer on the concept of skeletal mesh, just keep in mind that this is just the tip of everything else. We're not going to cover state machines. Animation state machines are essentially how blend states blend from one state of animations to another, which is something that we take for granted inside of the Unreal Engine, because the mannequin already has a state machine. I'll talk about the state machine. I'll showcase some elements of the state machine. I'll talk about some tools and terminology. I'll talk about how to make some very basic animations. There are already some ready-to-roll rigs that are ready to be used. I'm going to show some Mixamo stuff and a relative workflow for importing Mixamo animations and how to then take those animations and cast them onto the Unreal Skeleton. That can be pretty fun. But as far as the higher level of animation stuff goes, bespoke animations, animation montages, stuff like that, I generally stay away from it because I'm not necessarily very up to do about how all of that essentially works. Like I said, if I'm going to make a game, I either am going to hire an animator, I'm working with an animator, I'm working with a games animator, someone who has a background in Unreal Engine, or I'm going to purchase animation packs that already have all of my game development actions ready to go, so I can have a strong start. And then at your guys' level, it'll probably be more of the same, right? A strong code base, a strong animation base, where you can build something off of it. That is fundamentally the goal, right? So we're going to cover those things. Again, just a quick recap. We're going to cover the skeletal mesh overview. We're going to talk about some concept examples. We're going to look at the pipeline. We're going to talk about tools and terminology, socket manager. We're going to introduce a control rig. We're going to talk about ragdolls and simulations. And we're going to very briefly talk about the character workflow overview, right? With the assignment for tonight being essentially create either one or more animations that make your character just kind of appear to be moving, whether it be like a waving animation or something that like is very basic. If you really want to get crazy on it, you can create an animation with control rig. You can create one or more objects that move around the scene on a spline. You can morph an object if you want to get really advanced about it. You can do blend shapes if you want to get really advanced about it. I'm not necessarily super well versed on the idea. The easiest one is probably going to be to use the control rig to create a basic animation and then save that to sequencer, and then or save it as a montage and just have the character, behave in a certain way. And that's going to be it. Now I recognize that next week is also Thanksgiving, which is why the homework is going to be fairly light. Sorry, I almost knocked over my water here. Which is why the homework is going to be fairly light. I'm not going to ask for a whole lot. It's also not due during Thanksgiving. I'm going to extend the due date to 2 weeks. So it's not going to be due the week of Thanksgiving. It's going to be due near the end of the week, probably Thursday, Friday, next week. Not next week, but the week after. The week after Thanksgiving. This is because I'm not a monster, and I want you guys to have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. I know how frustrating it can be, especially for students to take work home on Thanksgiving, especially because there's family stuff, and you guys never do it anyways. So I'm not blind to that knowledge, right? I never did mine when it was Thanksgiving, and that's understandable. And because Skeletal Mesh Week lines up perfectly, it's almost too perfect, with Thanksgiving as a whole, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the homework that's assigned is relatively basic and is able to be done probably in an hour or two at your leisure, to allow you guys to kind of, if you're already caught up, to get caught up. And if you guys are still working on other things, you can always get caught up as well, and also continue to enjoy your holiday week without having to worry about a homework assignment being due on Wednesday or Thursday of Thanksgiving, which I assume people are going to be participating with family affairs and whatnot. For those of you who are struggling in this time, especially during Thanksgiving, for those of you who are watching this, at least, this is being recorded on the afternoon of the 15th. There is a Thanksgiving feast hosted by the Associated Student Government and the Basic Needs Resource Center. Those two are great resources to reach out to if you're having any kind of, or suffering any kind of food insecurity or some kind of social insecurity that they can help out with. They are inviting all students to go to their Thanksgiving feast. I posted this on the Discord. And they are packaging meals to go, so you don't actually have to stay there. And just enjoy a nice holiday meal if that's your thing. They're going to be doing that on November 18th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Mesa Commons. And if you want more information, go ahead and contact Student Affairs. Go ahead and check that out in the class assignments. I always get at least 1 or 2 students who are struggling with food insecurity. Look, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to make sure that you guys are taken care of and that everything is kind of working well. Go ahead and have that. Go ahead and give that a look, and then go from there. And of course, for the rest of the holiday, I want to say, don't think too much about this week's assignment. I want you guys to do it quickly. I want you guys to work on it quickly, and I am not necessarily looking for high quality here, mostly because I know what I would expect from my own animation work. So don't be too worried about getting it perfect. Just follow along. This is going to be heavy on lecture, heavy on kind of a hands-on demo, but the rest should be fairly straightforward. All right, we're going to hop into some examples here in a sec, but I'll go ahead and cut this off now since we're almost at 10 minutes, and I will see you guys on the next one.